Hello. Hi, Hemanth. So good to have you, Hemanth, joining us all the way from Hong Kong. Believe you have got a good score of GMAT score of 710 with
Yes, sir.
Quant 50 and Verbal 35, if I'm not wrong.
Yes, sir. That is
Right,
correct.
right, right. Great, great. So tell us very briefly about yourself, what's your profile and what are your MB plans?
Yes. So my name is Hemanth, and I did my BTech Computer Science back in 2004, and I started working for Philips Semiconductor, and later I started working for DSPG, a company called DSPG in Bangalore. And then 7 years back, I moved to Hong Kong to lead a customer support team here.
Hmm.
So this is mostly about my academic background and work experience.
Okay.
Yes. So regarding my MBA aspirations, since I'm already into the project management and also into the semiconductor company with the device, I know the software development for the devices. So I
Hmm.
would like to pursue further into the product management and generally the general management career. I believe MBA would give me a very good start for this career. Yeah, so
Okay.
this is the core reason for my MBA preparation. Yes.
Okay. So do you want to stick to your same industry or are you looking to diverge into different fields?
It's not necessarily to be into a same industry, but yes, I would like to leverage my technical expertise in my future career plan. So it would, I believe that it would give me a definite edge to what I'm doing in the future as well.
Yes.
Yeah, so yeah, this is my idea.
Great, great. So, what we really want to understand from you, Hemant, is that, uh, people do get lot of people get a 700 plus scores, uh, and there are different approaches that can be clicking for them. People come from different IQ levels, and then, they have different capabilities in, well, the quant, verbal, and the reasoning sections. So we would really like to hear from you, that what clicked for you, what was your approach for the different sections. So if I start talking about, let's say, quant, right now, generally it is understood that, well, at least majority wise, Indians, are good at quant. So still, how do you feel about the GMAT quant? Is it any different from what we do? And your tips and tricks to crack the GMAT quant.
Yes, for the GMAT quant especially, I believe that the way the questions are put forth for the in the exam is little twisted in general. Like
Okay.
you need to sometimes you need to end up decoding the question right.
Okay.
So this needs to be no this needs you need to be well aware of this and
Can you perhaps give it some, any few small examples to help us understand what do you mean by decoding, etc.?
Usually, for example, a speed and distance question. Usually, it will not be a direct question where you are given speed and time, and then you are asked to calculate a distance, right?
Hmm.
So the question will be a relative speed question, or and usually the question will be I mean the size of the question will be bigger, so
Okay.
you'll be given a lot of details in the question,
Okay.
and you are supposed to basically understand the idea. I mean, what is exactly to be answered
So
here.
you mean to say
Sometimes,
it's
yes,
so you mean to say it's superfluous and you have to just get to the crux. That is the
exactly.
issue. Right, right,
Yes, yes. And
right.
sometimes what I was missing is, for example, I'll be lost in the details of this question.
Hmm.
So finally, no, at the end of after, maybe I get to the answer, but sometimes what happens, I take too longer time to decode this question.
Hmm.
So you need to practice a lot. You should not be surprised at seeing these kind of questions in the exam. So for this, I guess you need to practice a lot and answer several questions so that you are not
Right.
surprised in the exam. Yes.
So Hemant, you just mentioned sometimes we get stuck on a question. So now in GMAT, it is very peculiar that you just see one question at a time. So how do you handle that, sort of thing? Like, what is the maximum time to spend on any question? Like, sometimes you feel that, oh, I think I'm close to getting an answer. So what's your take on that?
Yes. So in GMAT, I feel to get a perfect score in quants, you don't need to answer all 31 questions. So in general, they give 31 questions, and you don't need to answer all 31 questions. Even though you don't answer all the 31 questions, you still get a 50.
Mhm.
So basically, you need to understand. Uh, it is optimal to answer a question in 1.5 minutes
Right,
to
right.
2 minutes. Yes. If you think that you are taking too long for a question, or if you are seeing this kind of a question for the first time, let's say, and you need to you are started deriving a formula for this kind of question. No, it doesn't work, because you are
Hmm.
actually losing time, and
Mhm.
you will be capable of answering many other questions, right? So I
So,
better, yeah, so I
so I,
believe.
th-
Yes.
okay. So I think you're saying that if you have sort of seen that sort of a question before, only then you should go ahead. And if you're feeling that, oh, I need to start doing something from scratch for this question.
It
Uh,
depends on the question. It depends on the question. So basically, if it is a simple, if it is something that you can, for sure, each individual, it is up to their intuition, right? So basically, if they knew that they can solve this question, yes, go for it, please. But if it is something that you are taking too long, then I believe it is not a good idea to spend more than, I think, anything more than 2.5 minutes, you will yeah, it is not good, and it's not a good idea to spend so much of time in a question.
Also, I think one more thing that people mostly take time to get used to in quant is the data sufficiency. So the
Yes.
problems are split between the problem solving and the DS questions.
Yes.
So what's your what helped what worked for you in the DS part uh, type of questions?
Yes, for the DS especially, I mean, when I started working for GMAT, problem solving is something which I was comfortable at in general. But data structure is very tricky initially for me. So for example, yeah, so there are basically five options: A, B, C, D, E, and you need to choose whether only A is sufficient, B is sufficient, or both it needs to be sufficient. So here, sometimes what I used to do, if I find A is sufficient, and then maybe I don't put enough focus on seeing the option B, or
Mhm.
sometimes what happens is I know that A and B together is sufficient straight away.
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay, but I will not put enough focus to see whether A is alone sufficient or B is alone sufficient.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, and data structure data sufficiency questions, I think it is more important to understand, basically. For example, in my case, initially I was not applying like rational numbers. I was just trying to do so just integers and
Mhm.
answer the question, but actually for the rational numbers it would a different option would be sufficient.
Right,
So
right.
yes, so this is the tricky part with the data sufficiency, and yeah, so conceptually also you need to be good. Problem solving is something which is different, but data
Mm.
sufficiency, I think conceptually also you need to be really good to answer it faster and correctly.
Okay, so at the end of it all, you got a 50 score. Oh, so which topics you think were tricky, and any advice on handling the tricky topics in quant specifically? You know.
Yes. So for me, the tricky was the inequalities, and to a certain extent, if the question is too difficult, maybe geometry is also tricky for me, because Geometry is more of a concept. You need to remember and need to apply the exact concept. Otherwise, it is very difficult to answer the question in
Oh,
such short time.
right.
For the inequalities, yes. So basically, I had a lot of, for example, the column method I used to do, and I need to make sure. I need to tell myself many times that I need to make sure that I need to apply various numbers like integers, real numbers, and rational numbers. Make
Mhm.
sure that the option is satisfying this or not. So these are the things which on practice, more and more practice, I kind of got the knack of doing these questions. Yes.
Okay. And then coming to the verbal part,
Yes.
right? So,
Verbal is always tricky for Indians, I guess.
right, right.
Yes.
So, well, you have, the three types of problems that come in verbal. So, tell us one by one that, what works, what's the best approach. This is really something that we want to hear from you.
Yes. So yes. So for me, always, like, I mean, I'm an engineering grad, and generally, I think that myself I'm good at quants, but verbal. I'll let before starting with EduShastra.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I started preparing myself for almost a month. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I started preparing by myself almost a month.
Okay.
And then I was seeing that, actually, see, I started reading almost, I mean, I started reading the grammar, but it is not necessary that you need to know, and you cannot master the
Mm-hmm.
entire English grammar in just
Okay.
3 months or 4 months.
Right.
Usually this is the apt duration for preparing GMAT,
Okay.
I believe, and so in this time frame you cannot master the entire English grammar. So
Mm-hmm.
you need to be more specific. You need to see what is exactly asked in GMAT. For example, in sentence correction, it is most likely they will more concentrated in the modifiers,
Mm-hmm.
pronouns,
Mm-hmm.
and subject verb agreements,
Mm-hmm.
idioms. So these are certain things that, and also there actually the GMAT English I understand. I mean, more and more I practice through GMAT. I understand is GMAT English is more specific in certain ways, that in a common English you do use a lot of I mean, lot of structures while in a sentence, for example. But GMAT is more specific in that way. So you need to understand these concepts for
Okay.
the sentence correction. For the reading comprehension, yes, I read mostly the English newspapers in general already. So for me, the reading is an habit. Generally, even before GMAT preparation, I read several books. It helped me, I think, a lot to understand, I mean, to quickly go through the passages and understand the crux of the passage. But then again, the questions related to the reading comprehension,
Mm-hmm.
I think it is very specific. For example, when I was taking the course with EduShastra, I got familiarized with the stop method, where you need to know the scope of the passage, tone of the passage, how the passage is organized.
Okay.
Yeah, so these kind of principles are strategies, you would say, which are really helpful to answer the question in a shortest time possible.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, yes, and the critical reasoning is one tricky topic. I think in general, I mean, when we are preparing for any other exams in our regular curriculum, right?
Right.
So we will not encounter this kind of uh, topic or questions. I mean,
Right.
like a critical reasoning. So when I initially started with the critical reasoning, I started just read the argument and then try to answer what is most. But if you go through these options, you will find two or three options are always, like, the best matching to this argument.
Mm.
So you need to really understand how to divide this argument. You need to find the premise, conclusion, and what is the relation between the premise and the conclusion. In case of a weakening question, how do you weaken the conclusion? So these strategies are really important, and yeah, so more and more practice, I think it will be helpful to answer these questions. Yes.
So in that case, let us know that did you find, from where did you practice? Like you're saying that we don't need to get into the entire grammar, right? So how
Yes.
to find, a focused way to prepare? I mean, um, so from where did you, get to
Yes.
practice?
So when I so initially I started no reading the entire grammar, as I said, and then
Right.
when I go through the EduShastra website, for example, I'm just giving an example, and I saw the course material, right?
Mhm.
And then I mean, first and foremost, EduShastra has a very well defined course.
Okay.
They have decoded, I mean, they have made well defined topics for each of these course.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go through the, I mean, even if you go through the contents of the course, let's say, for example, the sentence correction, they
Mm-hmm.
have defined, like, with the bullet points, like
Mm-hmm.
what under the sentence correction will be taught, like a
Okay.
subject verb agreement or pronoun. And then I also actually started reading I mean, for practicing the questions, I got the GMAT original guide,
Mm-hmm.
and
Official
then
guide.
I official guide. Yes.
At this point of time, let us know that you would have been practicing regularly and you would have been taking classes. So how did you transition to the sort of testing aptitude? Because one thing is knowing concepts and being able to solve a question in with no time foundation. But like how did you transition from being understanding the concepts and then actually sitting in an exam of 187 minutes and getting a good score? So uh,
Yes. So that way, yes, actually, it is very important. To start with, first I took the diagnostic test from EduShastra
okay.
to understand my level, like
Mhm.
how far how good I am actually at this moment, and what are the topics or areas of concern that I need to focus more. And then so then for sure I started solving more and more problems. It can be from your conceptual sheet and your problem the problem sheets that you provide to us, and also from the official guide. But after a certain stage, I started taking a weekly test.
Mhm.
Sometimes tests in two tests in a week. Especially, like, for example, you teach us one particular topic, like uh, the inequalities or the word problems, right?
Mhm.
So at this time I would take a test only in that particular topic and see how good, I mean, how I'm faring in this particular topic. Do I need a further improvement here? And then what I used to do, actually I started in August my preparation, and I took the exam in November.
Okay.
Yeah, so in the last month or so, like in October, so I kind of had like total 5 weeks. I planned to take 5 mock tests from
Mhm.
EduShastra,
Mhm.
and two mock tests from the MBA.com.
Mhm.
Yeah, so total I plan to take at least a minimum of 7 to 8 mock tests.
Okay.
So I used to take one mock test every week,
Mhm.
and I was seeing how I was faring. And it's basically, GMAT is a very strenuous test that way, because it will be a total of 4 hours test. So you need to be well prepared to sit for 4 hours, because it's
Right.
you're going through quants, verbal, which are all very strenuous. So
Mhm.
you need to have your mind prepared to focus for so long. So
Okay.
it is very important to take this mock test. uh,
Mhm.
yes, yeah, so initially I was scoring 620, 640,
Okay.
and then for first few mock tests, I took one MBA mock test. Initially, I was scoring around 640.
Mm-hmm.
And then towards the end, I was scoring. I always feel EduShastra's mock test is more demanding.
Okay.
So I was scoring around 670, 680.
Okay.
But when I took the MBA, the mock test towards the end, the next one, I
Mm-hmm.
was scoring around 720.
Okay.
So in this mock test, so yeah, so it is very important to take this mock test
Right. Right.
towards the end before your exam, right? Yes.
So you mentioned that it is a challenging, demanding exam. So, any tips, any guidance on how to handle? And did you get any exam jitters, by the way? You know, when you are going for the actual GMAT, because when you're giving a mock, you're just on your own and you don't have any stress.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, actually, to be frank, I mean, the previous day it was, I was also feeling stress for
Okay.
sure.
Okay.
But I tried to, I did, I took the exam on Monday. I took off and I took the exam on Monday. So that over the week I will, because usually Friday I come back from office. So I don't want that stress on me, to directly go to exam on Saturday or Sunday.
Hmm.
So I took my last mock test on Saturday morning,
Mm-hmm.
and so this is when I said I got a 720 score, and with that, I just left. I tried to keep myself away from the books for the entire Sunday,
Hmm.
and yeah, Monday morning I reached the exam hall 45 minutes before, and uh, actually it's and you need to be the mock test that I was taking with EduShastra, for example, it's exactly the same pattern that you see in the GMAT
Okay.
exam center. So it
Okay.
is not like you are not totally unfamiliar with the exam. So when you
Okay.
sit there, you know something that you are keep doing all this time. So it is not totally different, and it's not a surprise for you. And yeah, so my strategy was always to concentrate question by question. Do not take too much time on each of the questions, and if you are stuck, it's still okay. Go ahead, try, just do a guess,
Mm-hmm.
right guess, and continue with the next question.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, so this was my total strategy, and I definitely took all the breaks. I tried to use all the breaks so that I cool down myself, because once, okay, first thing is it's important to know what is your strength. Is it quants, verbal?
Mm-hmm.
So you need to choose the right pattern, like whether you need to choose the verbal, quant, and then IR, and then the AWA or the
Right.
quant verbal. So I chose, I always believe quants is my strongest point. So I chose the quant, verbal,
Okay.
IR, and AWA.
Okay.
And then, yeah, so I made use of all the breaks so that I cool down. When I finish my quants, I cool down 8 minutes and I start exactly. And yeah, so I walk through question by question, and
Great, great, great.
yes.
So also, we mostly, we see that sometimes students actually sort of feel that, okay, quant and verbal are giving me that score out of 800, and sort of they sideline the other two sections. What do you think? How relevant are these, and your strategies and tips and tricks on it? Both of the IR.
Yes. So let me start with AWA.
Right.
AWA is something. I mean, many GMAT enthusiasts, they think that this is the score they don't consider.
Hmm.
But when you start writing essays for the colleges,
Mhm.
I understand that they do consider the score. If the score is too low, and even though
Hmm.
you take some assistance from the external party and you prepare a great essay, they will definitely see the difference in the your
Right.
score and this your essays, right?
Right.
So
Right.
yeah, so this is something which is very important. So you need to have a good score in AWA, so that when you present your essays to the they don't consider this. I believe they don't consider this as a, for your that whether to offer you a seat in a college or not, but then they will definitely consider whether your essays are really authentic or not. So
Right.
it's very definitely you need to put effort into the AWA as well to get a good at least five. It's I think is good to score.
Out of
Uh,
6.
yeah, it's out of 6. Yes, it's out
Yeah,
of
yeah.
6. Yes, so at least a minimum of 5.5 is good to go. And then the next one is the IR.
Higher.
Yes, IR again. I felt IR is not very. It is not about the what is that? I know it's not like you have too many calculations, or
Mhm.
it's more of understanding the question. So basically, IR you have 12 questions. You need to so half you are given half an hour, and you will be given table formats,
Mhm.
graphs, and and some reasoning questions, and
Mhm.
yeah, multi source question. Yes.
Right.
So yeah, so basically it is very important to know what questions you can answer during this time,
Mhm.
because to get a 8 you don't need to answer all of them, and it is too optimistic to believe that you can answer all of these questions right in a given half an hour. Yeah, I mean, if you are very good, yes, please go ahead, but I'm just saying it is very important to to plan accordingly, that you are at least answering 8 to 9 questions, right?
Okay.
So that you score good in IR.
So, did your quants concepts themselves help in your IR section, or were there some different things coming in there to, handle? What?
Yes, quant section definitely helps. For example, you are asked to find a mean or median,
Mhm.
or sometimes you yeah. So or you are asked to, I mean, the basic algebra kind of things, and they sometimes they give a flowchart kind of a question, and you are asked to count. I mean, get the output of this kind of flowchart questions.
Okay.
Definitely, the quant questions helps us, but that is itself is not enough.
Okay.
You need to know a few more things. I mean, like for example, the statistics, like what is a correlation, and how do you predict the correlation between the two entities here. So these kind of the additional things that you learn is very important, I feel.
Okay. 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 Good. Good. So, Hemant, how was journey with EduShastra from end to end? What helped you, in this process to reach this score at the end of the day?
Yes. So EduShastra. So when I started preparing by myself, I felt that I needed a direction, basically.
Mm-hmm.
It's if I start preparing myself by myself, I would take a very long time, but still I would not get the desirable output. So what is required is a proper guidance, who from somebody who knows what it is, to take a GMAT exam, right? So so that way, when I've gone through when I hit the cloud and searched for the best coaching sites in India, the Shastra was a prominent name that was keep coming,
Mm-hmm.
and I gone through the web portal, and I find their course pattern is very very good. They have a mapping phase, and then they have the testing phase, control phase, and then the concept phase. So basically, a mapping phase is where you are when you are when you are trying to register to EduShastra, they ask you to take an exam. Basically, not for me, they asked, because I have an engineering background, they never asked me to take a quant section, but they asked me to take only the verbal part, and they assess my level, and they try to fit me in a correct class where I feel this is very good, because you always feel that you are at the right pace, you are learning at the right pace. Maybe if I'm put with people who are actually too good, or too or not very or not at my level, for example. So in this case, maybe I feel too intimidating, or maybe I feel the this is such an easy question, why sir is taking too long to explain. But it is so this really helps. You are at the right pace when you are in the class. And so after this mapping phase, then the concepts of so even in the quants, let's say when I go through the official guide, I see that the questions are quite easy, I could solve, but it takes time for me sometimes, but I could solve them. But getting understanding the concepts behind how these things are getting derived, and what is the easiest approach to answer this question, and the data sufficiency, how do you strategy to answer a particular question. So
Mm-hmm.
these are the things that I learned from the EduShastra, and these things are really helped me, in my quants, and even in verbal, the critical reasoning part. How do you basically how do you analyze your argument, and where to attack, whether in a flaw question you attack a premise, in a weakening question you attack you raise a question against the conclusion. So these are the things that you need to be really aware of. I mean, to answer maybe at least 10 out of 12 questions of us, the critical reasoning. Otherwise, it's like certain times you might answer all of them, and certain times it's like you don't answer very well. Like you might answer just 2 or 3 questions correct. So this inconsistency is something that you should avoid. So
Okay.
basically, the conceptually, the teaching of EduShastra really helped me to achieve this. So whenever I take an exam, I know definitely, like in sentence correction, I could answer at least 12 questions. Out of 12 questions, I could answer 9 or 10. So this really gave me a confidence to go for the exam. Yes.
So, while you were taking classes, what sort of structure you put to your preparation? I mean, in the sense that, fine, you might have a schedule of, let's say, a few hours of classes with EduShastra. So then, what did you use to do from from class to class? Because I mean, do you need what level of consistency do you think is required? To get a score, and what you should be doing between the classes. What's your advice?
So between the classes, so I took the weekend classes since I'm working from Hong Kong. I took the weekend online classes, and every weekend, a particular new topic will be introduced to us, and then you do help with the concept sheets. You go through the concept sheets, and then you uh, do actually some questions for us to make us familiarize with the whole topic.
Right.
And then the it's actually homework is given to us, and then yeah, so we start with this homework. But what I see is actually you cannot just work on a weekend, just before the class you just do the problems, and it's too fast. And whatever you do also, you will personally I feel you do not get the whole concept if you just rush through the concepts, right? So what I try to do myself, I will try to reach office early. So for example, at around 8:30 when nobody is there, I try to do 1.5 hour practice. And then sometimes I try to do go through the concept sheets, or go through the verbal part, which doesn't need me to carry a pen paper always.
Mm.
So during my lunchtime, I go through for an hour, And then what I used to do around 7:30, I wind up my work and then stay in office, because when I come back home, definitely my kids are there. So what I try to do around 7:30, I wind up my work and then stay back in office, work. Practice till 9:30. So that gives me around like a consistent uh, 3-4 hours at least, three and a half hours, 4 hours at least every day.
Okay.
And
So you're saying 1 hour in the morning and like 2 hours in the
2 hours
evening.
in the evening, yes.
Okay.
And
Okay.
sometimes I go, I mean, walk through my lunchtime, but not always. So this is my routine,
Hmm.
so that I will not rush through the practice only on the weekends. And then when I started doing the, I mean, this tests, mock tests, or even before the mock tests, the sectional tests. So I used to take them during the weekends. I knew that I will be taking the exam around 11 o'clock, 11:30 when I register to GMAT. So I
Okay.
try to take the exam exactly at this time, so that I know my
Okay.
routine when I start my breakfast. How do I feel? 11 o'clock till 3 o'clock it goes. So I know how do my lunch plans work out during this time. So I try to simulate an environment of GMAT test every Saturday, let's say.
Mhm.
So this also helped me. But do not rush through the questions in just one day. Just take your time, understand the concepts well, and then try to answer the questions. Yes, so this was my strategy always.
Thanks so much, Hemant, for all those inputs. I am sure people must have had some learnings from you. Well, any closing thoughts? Any final advice? Even any advice to us? Anything for EduShastra to improve upon? And in general, any advice to those people who are taking the GMAT, and want to get a good success story for themselves?
Yes, so nothing works like hard work. So I believe if you want to take GMAT, I think at least you need to solve 800 to 1,000 questions in quants.
Okay.
Yeah, the official guide itself will provide you around 750 questions, I guess, and your
Hmm.
concept sheets are there. Definitely the problems that you give as homework. So all these things you need to practice a lot, GMAT, and you need to have the strategies that work for you. Especially, it's not like strategies that working for others might not help you, but because you need to uh, understand how you are progressing, and get the strategies correct, and start early. So at least give a time of 4 months, a minimum of 4 months. Don't rush to the exam. Only then you can actually tap your best potential, I feel. Yeah, so this is something I would like to tell all the for future GMAT takers. Yes.
Okay.
And, yeah, for edu, yes.
Okay, okay. Great, Hemant. Looking forward to you actually getting into a good B school, and getting further with your real plans in life further ahead. Wishing you great luck with your future.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. Yes.
Sure. Okay, Hemant. Nice having you. Take care. Bye
Yeah.
bye.
Bye bye.